In this short video, I'm going to change the way you think about how we should be protecting communities from wildfire. And if you like this message, please like and share this post. It's really important, it really helps. Did you know that on average about 0.05% of wildfires are responsible for around 95% of acreage burned in California each year? That's right, the United States now spends billions of dollars each year fighting fires with modern fire suppression methods. And it works pretty well in most cases, so well that around 95 to 98% of fires are controlled with initial suppression efforts. But what about those big fires, the ones that we can't control, the ones causing community damage and loss of life? What's the one thing that those fires all have in common? Well, the theory that gets the most attention these days is that decades of fire suppression has resulted in a buildup of fuel in our forests, and that's the main cause of big fires today. You've probably heard this by now. And there is an active and complicated scientific debate about how that theory may be accurate or less accurate for different types of forests in North America. But back to our question, what is it that these big fires have in common? Is it buildup of fuel in forests? The answer is no. The single biggest determining factor that nearly all big fires have in common isn't fuel at all. It's extreme weather, both due to drought and climate change, but especially extreme windy conditions. And we see over and over again that attempts to protect communities by logging or thinning surrounding forests are ineffective during severe weather conditions because it's not the fuel. Like during the 2021 Dixie Fire that burned nearly 1 million acres and destroyed multiple communities. It burned straight through miles and miles of land that was previously logged, thinned, and treated with prescribed fire. Or the 2020 North Complex Fire that burned over 300,000 acres and resulted in the loss of 16 lives. It burned through massive acreage that had been previously logged, thinned, or treated with prescribed fire. Or many other major fires that you've probably heard of, like the Caldor Fire, or the Camp Fire, or the 2021 Marshall Fire, or most recently, the devastating Lahaina Fire. Both locations where there really wasn't any forest at all, but invasive grasslands. No vegetation there even to thin. Because wind-driven embers can travel up to a mile or more in distance, and it's wind-driven embers that light structures on fire, not flame fronts from trees and shrubs burning in the forest. Meaning that there is no form of forest thinning that will prevent fires from spreading when it really matters the most. Sometimes when we talk about this, people ask, are you saying that we just shouldn't do anything at all to protect communities? Just let communities burn? No, we're not saying that at all. This building, a museum, miraculously survived the Lahaina fire. Why? Because the owners recently had installed non-flammable roofing and replaced landscaping with river stones about 1 meter around the house. They invested in landscaping that amounted to home hardening for fire. Fire departments and fire safe councils agree that the number one way to protect homes from wildfires is to invest in home hardening and defensible space within about 100 feet of structures. Home hardening is a proven and effective solution. It's way more effective than removing fuel from forests. The problem is that in the realm of public policy, we're still stuck almost entirely on the fuel part. And so federal and state governments continue to spend the vast majority of related tax dollars not on helping communities home harden, but on the biggest expansion of logging and forest thinning that we've seen in decades. And unfortunately, they're painting with massive broad brushstrokes that aren't taking into account the different types of forests we have or the potential negative impacts that some of these projects will have. It's just get her done. The Los Padres National Forest is currently proposing the biggest fuels reduction project in its history, with vast swaths of what little conifer forest we have outside of protected wilderness areas being targeted for thinning, regardless of the specific conditions or plant ecology at those locations. And most of these locations are miles, in many cases, dozens of miles away from the nearest community. if fires even in grasslands can burn down communities, what is the logic in spending taxpayer money cutting down forests rather than using that money for solutions that are proven to work time and time again? Forest Watch supports legislation and programs that provide funding for home hardening and defensible space for communities, including low-income communities. We need our government officials to stop diverting taxpayer dollars away from solutions that actually work in order to fund massive logging and thinning projects that don't even make sense. We, along with other organizations and scientists around the country, are trying our best to ring the alarm bell about this runaway train of forest thinning. You can help by sharing this message. Learn more by visiting lpfw.org/homeoutward and protectyourforest.org. Thanks for listening.